The Spanish kept the eastern half, the French got the western half.
Certainly Saint-Domingue had its rural components, but as a colonial place, it was often compared to Paris in the refinements of life that were there.
It very quickly developed into the most profitable of all of France's colonies in the 18th century.
Urban planning was following the guidelines that had been established in Europe. Saint-Domingue had a drainage system, very active public works that had beautiful gardens, beautiful theaters, a Royal Academy, the only one in the French colonies. Both in the literary and in the musical arts, Saint-Domingue and the Caribbean islands were very, very advanced. For example, Haydn's symphonies were commissioned by Chevalier de Saint-Georges, a free person of color.
The free people of color did in fact occupy a legal status. It was sort of a third tier between the upper class whites and the petit blanc and then the slaves. So they did in fact have some recognized rights as a class of people, as opposed to just simply being black with some privileges because they were freed.
The revolution in Haiti in 1791 was a very bloody revolution.
The French Revolution and the ideas and ideals that it espoused could not philosophically tolerate slavery.
In 1793, the French Assembly did banish slavery in all the colonies.
There was a large influx of several thousand people after the uprising.
Between 1809 and 1810 in New Orleans, the city grew by 10,000 people from Haiti.
It's really because of those people that the French language and French culture continued, because they really reinforced the French people who were already here.
When people came to Louisiana from Saint-Domingue, they brought skills with them in trades like ironwork, brick masonry, or stone cutting to create that sort of infrastructure and physical character that New Orleans has since become known so well for.
Voodoo was practiced widely in Saint-Domingue. It was not practiced widely in Louisiana until after voodoo priests and priestesses come in. So they are able to preserve old African traditions.
These people were so involved with the performing arts. It was part of their heritage. And when they came to Louisiana, they brought that heritage with them. We had a very strong musical tradition going back to the beginnings of the city. You just had a very accepting society that appreciated differences. It would just naturally give birth to a figure such as Gottschalk or the jazz, where you weren't penalized for being different.
After the Civil War, the slaves were liberated, but at the same time, the Creoles of color suffered tremendously. They weren't really accepted by white society, and they weren't really accepted by the blacks, and they spoke French. What they got were Jim Crow laws. They could not be educated in English because they couldn't be accepted in English-speaking schools. So many of them would complete their education in France. They studied Voltaire, they studied the French Revolution, they studied ideas of the rights of man. And when that generation came back, their eyes were really opened to the injustices that were taking place all around them in Louisiana. Creoles of color were the ones who really led the fight in Plessy versus Ferguson.